Hello, today's story takes place in 2007, when an American exchange student in Italy became embroiled in a murder case. The victim was British, the suspect was American, but the incident occurred in Italy. Regarding whether the American exchange student was guilty or not, public opinion was almost evenly split between supporters and opponents. No one could convince the other side. The case received massive attention from the moment it happened. The entire affair can be said to be extremely complex, going through many twists and turns. Though somewhat brain-teasing, the details are incredibly intriguing. The incident was considered a major case that garnered attention from both Europe and America simultaneously. It was known as the angel-faced killer case in Italy. The story takes place in the city of Perugia in central Italy. Perugia is a hilltop city with most houses built on slopes, bearing distinctive local characteristics. The artistic atmosphere here is very rich. The city still preserves many architectural structures from medieval and Renaissance times. Viewed from above, the cityscape appears as beautiful as a painting. Perugia has a population of about 150,000, of which over one-fourth are students, including many international exchange students. The main character of our story is named Emily Johnson. She was one of the many exchange students who came to Perugia. Born in 1987, she was just 20 years old that year. Emily came from Seattle, Washington in the United States. She studied at the University of Washington before coming to Perugia, Italy as an exchange student, planning to study there for 1 year. However, no one expected that not long after she arrived in Italy, a major event would occur. So what happened on that day? How did the entire incident unfold? Let's travel back in time to September 20th, 2007 to explore the details of the event. On September 20th, 2007, a Thursday, Emily arrived in Perugia. The school she attended was called the University for Foreigners of Perugia. She found accommodation at 7 Via della Pergola, just 200 meters from the university. A few minutes walk away. It was a 2-story apartment built on a hillside like most houses in the area, bearing distinctive local characteristics. The surrounding scenery was also very beautiful. Although the apartment had 2 floors, there was no internal staircase connecting them. To go down to the first floor, one could only use the external stairs. You can think of the first and second floors as 2 independent apartments. Emily would be living with 3 other female students on the second floor. Let's take a look at the floor plan inside the apartment. This is the location of the entrance door, the only way into the apartment. Looking from outside, the entrance door is here. Stepping inside is the common living room area with a sofa, dining table, refrigerator, and TV. On the other side of the living room is the kitchen area. Though not spacious, it has all the basic amenities. This is the common living area for the 4 female students. Next are 4 bedrooms. Emily was assigned the middle room. The room next to hers belonged to Sarah Miller, a 21-year-old British exchange student. The other 2 rooms, the bedroom near the entrance belonged to Sophia, and the remaining room was Lisa's. Both these girls were Italian and were trainee lawyers. The apartment had 2 bathrooms, one near the entrance and one inside. There was also a balcony where one could sunbathe and enjoy the mountain scenery. Not long after settling in, Emily found a part-time job at a local bar called La Chic. In her free time, she would go to the bar to work as a waitress to earn extra income. The bar owner, Mr. Thompson, had a very good impression of Emily from their first meeting, so he quickly hired her. Emily had a cheerful and outgoing personality. Very good at attracting customers, she often chatted with them, sometimes to the point where Mr. Thompson had to remind her to talk less and get back to work.
Swear to God, I don't know what it is about people who think that guys are not attractive physically, but
Emily quickly adapted to life in Italy and integrated with her roommates. On October 25th, Emily and Sarah, her British roommate, attended a concert together. There, they met a handsome Italian guy named Marco Rossi. Emily really liked Harry Potter, and Marco looked a lot like Harry Potter. So Emily had a very good impression of him. Thus, the 2 began dating. From then on, Emily started staying overnight at Marco's apartment instead of returning to her own. However, the 2 apartments were not far apart, only a 5-minute walk away. October 31st was Halloween, That evening, students organized a big party. Sarah, Emily's roommate, dressed up as a vampire and seemed to be having a lot of fun. However, that was the last photo of her in life. The next day was a holiday. There was no work or school that day. The two Italian roommates had both gone home and were not in the apartment. Emily had been immersed in enjoying passionate love with her new boyfriend for the past few days, so she also hadn't returned to the apartment. Therefore, only Sarah was left alone in the apartment at this time. That day, Sarah went to a friend's house to watch a movie, then returned to the apartment around 9 p.m. However, what happened next completely changed Sarah's fate. On November 1st, 2007, a Thursday morning, a local Italian woman found 2 mobile phones in her garden. She felt it was strange, so she took them to the postal police station. The postal police is a law enforcement agency in Italy, specializing in cases related to postal and telecommunications services. The postal police quickly traced the registered address of one of the phones and found it was 7 Via della Pergola, Emily's apartment address. This location was only about 500 meters from where the phones were found. So the postal police brought the mobile phones to the address at 7 Via della Pergola. When the postal police arrived, they saw a man and a woman standing in front of the door, looking very worried. They were Emily and her boyfriend Marco. Emily told the postal police that when she arrived, the apartment door was open and one of the bedrooms was locked from the inside. It was Sarah's bedroom. Emily had called Sarah's phone but got no answer. She was very worried. At 12:51 p.m., after the postal police arrived, Marco, Emily's boyfriend, called the carabinieri.
Carabinieri? Pronto, buongiorno. Senta, qualcuno è praticamente entrato in casa sfondando la finestra e ha messo molto disordine, c'è una porta chiusa. La via è...
Not long after receiving the report, the carabinieri, Italy's national police force, arrived at the scene. They entered the apartment, asked everyone to go outside, then broke down the door of the locked bedroom at the far end. The room was a mess, blood everywhere. Sarah was lying motionless on the floor, her body covered by a duvet. Her throat had been cut. There were no signs of life. The police immediately sealed off the crime scene, called for backup, and began examining the body. From Sarah's position to the apartment entrance, the police found a trail of bloody footprints. In the bathroom, blood stains were found on the blue bath mat, faucet, light switch, sink, and many other places. The toilet showed signs of not being flushed. The bedroom window near the entrance was broken. On the bedroom floor, police found a rock that looked like it had been thrown in through the window. At the crime scene, police also found a bra with its straps cut. The autopsy results showed that the cause of Sarah's death was excessive blood loss and suffocation after her throat was cut. There were signs of sexual assault on the victim's body. Police also collected male DNA from her body. Police took statements from Emily and Marco, the first 2 people at the scene. According to Emily's statement, on the evening of November 1st, the day before the incident, she was at her boyfriend Marco's apartment. They watched the movie Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain together. While watching the movie, Emily received a text message from Mr. Thompson, the bar owner. He said the bar was empty that night, so Emily didn't need to come to work. After that, Emily stayed at her boyfriend's apartment and slept there overnight. The next morning, Emily returned to her own apartment. At the door, she saw the main door was open, and inside she saw nothing unusual, so she went back to her room. Everything was normal. Then she went to the bathroom to take a shower. She saw a few drops of blood in the sink, but just thought someone had cut themselves, so she didn't pay much attention. She brushed her teeth and took a shower. After showering, when she stepped on the bath mat, she saw a larger blood stain. Emily suddenly felt something was wrong. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. She quickly got dressed and left the apartment, going straight to Marco's apartment. Then Emily and Marco returned to the apartment together. They went inside and saw many larger bloodstains on the floor. They tried to open Sarah's bedroom door, but it was locked. Marco repeatedly knocked on the door and called Sarah's name, but there was no answer. Then Marco tried to kick the door twice, but couldn't open it. Finally, the two went outside to discuss what to do. Marco decided to call the police. After conducting a preliminary investigation, the police found that the bedroom window near the entrance was broken. There was a rock on the floor that looked like someone had broken in. However, there were no climbing marks outside the window. It's very likely the killer deliberately staged the scene to look like a break-in. When reviewing the video footage from the scene that day, police found Emily and her boyfriend constantly comforting and being intimate with each other. In that situation, their behavior seemed very inappropriate. The first people to arrive at the scene are very likely to be the perpetrators. At this point, Emily and Marco had become the police's prime suspects. Over the next few days, police interrogated the two multiple times. Marco stated that on the night before the incident, Emily had stayed at his apartment all night and only left the next morning. The police clearly didn't believe Marco's statement. They pressured Marco, saying his American girlfriend was very good at lying. She had deceived him. Marco was in a very dangerous position. If he didn't tell the truth, he would be dragged down by her. Finally, Marco changed his statement. He told the police that he had lied. Everything he said before was at Emily's request. That night, he stayed home all night, but Emily didn't return until 1 a.m. In another interrogation room, police checked Emily's phone. They found a text message that the bar owner sent her on the night before the police received the report. The content of the message was the bar owner informing Emily that she didn't need to come to work that night. Emily then replied to the message with, "Certo. Ci vediamo più tardi. Buona serata," which means, "Sure. See you later. Have a good evening." Emily explained that her response meant, "I understand," a common courtesy. However, the police didn't think so. They believed this message meant Emily would meet the bar owner that evening. The more they investigated, the more suspicious the police became of Emily. They started to show a harsh attitude towards her. They even slapped her face, demanding she remember where she was that night. Emily was just a 20-year-old girl. Under heavy pressure, her mental state was nearly collapsing. Emily began to recall that on that night, she didn't stay at her boyfriend's apartment all night, but returned to her own apartment once. When she returned, she saw a man wearing a jacket. That man was Mr. Thompson, the bar owner. Then Emily heard Sarah's scream. Emily told the police that it was Mr. Thompson who killed Sarah. Emily's statement not only pushed herself into the fire, but also made Marco more heavily suspected. The police decided to arrest Emily, Marco, and the bar owner. In the blink of an eye, everything pointed to Mr. Thompson. The media reported extensively, causing a public sensation. Everyone thought the killer had been caught. However, Mr. Thompson quickly provided an alibi and was released. If Mr. Thompson wasn't the killer, why did Emily falsely accuse him? Emily's actions clearly made her more suspicious. Later, the police obtained a warrant to search Marco's apartment. They found a small knife in the kitchen drawer. The knife had Emily's DNA on the handle and Sarah's DNA on the blade. This knife matched the murder weapon that caused the fatal wound on Sarah's neck. The police had obtained very valuable evidence. There was no more authentic evidence than this knife. The news spread quickly. Emily became the focus of public opinion. Everyone believed she was the killer. Because of Emily's beautiful appearance, some newspapers called her the angel-faced killer. During the investigation, the police found the owner of the DNA discovered in the victim's body. It was a man named Ryan Brown. In the victim's bedroom, the police also found many of this man's fingerprints. Feces in the toilet also belonged to him. Ryan had a criminal record of breaking and entering. After the incident, he had fled to Germany. He was later arrested by German police and extradited back to Italy. Ryan admitted that he had gone to Sarah's house that night and had sex with her, but he didn't kill anyone. Ryan stated that while he was in the bathroom, he heard a scream. He ran out to see what was happening and saw a man rush out the door and run away. Because it was dark, he couldn't see the man's face clearly. Then Ryan saw Sarah bleeding profusely. Too scared, he ran away. Ryan also added that Emily had nothing to do with this. She wasn't at the scene. However, at the trial, Ryan changed his testimony. He said that night he had seen Emily leave through the window. Finally, Ryan was convicted of participating in the murder, and sentenced to 30 years in prison. A few years later, Ryan appealed and his sentence was reduced to 16 years. Although Ryan had been convicted, no one seemed to care about him anymore. All attention was focused on one person only: Emily. After more than a year of investigation, the police had collected evidence and officially indicted Emily and her boyfriend. Countless people followed this international case that shocked both Italy and the United States. On January 16, 2009, more than a year after the incident, the trial officially began. Defendants Emily and Marco were charged with murder. The prosecutor argued that Emily was a promiscuous girl who often brought boyfriends home. Based on all the evidence collected, the prosecutor reconstructed the course of events as follows. That evening, after watching the movie, Sarah returned to the apartment alone. She saw Emily, Marco, and Ryan. Emily asked Sarah if she wanted to join them in a new game. Sarah scolded Emily for being shameless. Emily got angry, thinking Sarah had no right to lecture her. Then the two argued and started fighting. Marco took out a small knife from his pocket to threaten Sarah. Sarah resisted fiercely, but was eventually killed by them. To support his argument, the prosecutor presented some key evidence from the case. First, the murder weapon that caused the fatal wound to the victim was a small knife. This knife was found in Marco's apartment. Emily's DNA was on the handle, while Sarah's DNA was on the blade. Second, in Sarah's bedroom, police found a bra clasp. Marco's DNA was on the clasp. The bruises on the victim's body also matched Marco's body size. Third, Emily stated that on that night, she also heard Sarah's scream. Later, Emily falsely accused Mr. Thompson, the bar owner. However, Mr. Thompson provided an alibi. This shows that Emily constantly lied. Her testimony was full of lies and not credible. She must have been at the scene. Fourth, on the bath mat in the bathroom, there were some footprints. Some footprints were small, while others matched Marco's foot size. Fifth, the bedroom window near the entrance was broken. There was a rock in the room. However, there were no signs of someone breaking in from outside. The killer had broken the window to create a fake crime scene. On December 4, 2009, it was the day of the verdict. Outside the courthouse, it was packed with a large number of reporters and citizens, anxiously waiting for the result of the trial. Finally, the court found that the case had sufficient evidence and clear proof. They declared defendants Emily and Marco guilty of murder, sentenced to 26 years and 25 years in prison respectively. Most Italian citizens supported the court's verdict. However, people on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean in the United States didn't think so. They believed the Italian police had serious prejudice during the investigation of Emily. They always assumed she was the criminal. This was unfair to Emily. Some influential figures spoke up in Emily's defense.
There's no evidence that links her to this crime, other than she said some stupid things after, being tormented for hours and hours.
On November 24, 2010, more than 3 years after the incident, the Italian appeals court reopened the trial of the case. The defense lawyers raised doubts about some key evidence presented by the prosecution. First, regarding the knife. After being examined by experts again, they found that Emily's DNA on the knife handle was complete and had no problems. However, the DNA found on the blade was not intact. It was only a very small amount of DNA. Concluding that the DNA definitely belonged to Sarah was very forced. Moreover, this knife was only similar to the murder weapon. It couldn't be definitively confirmed that it was the knife used to kill Sarah. Therefore, the defense lawyers argued that the court should not consider this evidence. Second, regarding the bra clasp found in Sarah's bedroom, it was discovered 47 days after the incident occurred. Such a long time made it very difficult to determine whether it was still in its original position or not. Besides Marco's DNA, DNA from 2 other unidentified men was also found on this clasp. Therefore, there was reason to believe that this evidence had been contaminated. From the video recorded by the police, it can be seen that their crime scene examination procedure was very unprofessional. In Perugia, such serious criminal cases rarely occur. So the police lacked experience. They not only didn't change shoes or gloves, but also allowed many unauthorized people to enter and exit the scene, causing serious disruption to the crime scene. Evidence sent to the laboratory for testing was not kept separate but piled on top. After comparing the footprints found at the crime scene again, it couldn't be definitively confirmed that they belonged to Marco. Regarding Emily falsely accusing the bar owner, she claimed that she had been coerced by the police. They didn't believe what she said and kept pressuring her until she had to make up a story that satisfied them. That's why she falsely accused Mr. Thompson. On October 3, 2011, this was the day of the verdict for the appeal trial. Countless media outlets from around the world were anxiously waiting for the result outside the courthouse. The Italian appeals court delivered its verdict. The court found that there was insufficient evidence to convict, declaring defendants Emily and Marco not guilty of murder and ordering their immediate release in court. After hearing the verdict, Emily burst into tears with emotion. However, many Italian citizens following the trial were extremely angry. They couldn't accept this result. They believed Emily was the killer and expressed their dissatisfaction with the verdict, hoping the Italian Supreme Court would review the case. After being released, Emily returned to her hometown of Seattle, USA. More than 6 years after the incident, on January 30, 2014, the Italian appeals court overturned the acquittal of Emily and Marco, once again declaring them guilty of murder. Emily's sentence was increased from 26 years to 28 years and 6 months in prison. Emily declared that she would never return to Italy. As for Marco, within a few days after the sentence was handed down, he returned to Italy to fight against the murder charge. The reason the court made such a declaration was that they believed Ryan, who had been convicted of murder, had not acted alone. Although Ryan never stated that Emily and Marco had participated in the murder, he also couldn't prove they weren't at the scene. On March 27, 2015, the case took another turn. The Italian Supreme Court overturned the murder charges against Emily and Marco from the appeals court. The Supreme Court found that there was insufficient biological evidence to prove their guilt and declared the case officially closed. There would be no more trials. The case, which lasted 8 years and shocked both Italy and the United States, had finally come to an end. However, the debate about whether Emily was a murderer or not has never ceased. The evidence could be used to prove her guilt, but it could also be used to prove her innocence. Like the Italian justice system, people's opinions constantly changed, contradicting themselves. It seemed that the more one delved into the case, the harder it became to determine whether Emily was truly innocent or not. After returning to the United States in late 2011, Emily completed her studies, began working as a freelance journalist, and wrote a book about her case. She was often followed by paparazzi. Her family had to shoulder a large debt from supporting her in Italy and went bankrupt in 2013. In 2013, she published a book titled Waiting to be Heard. This was a memoir about her experience and became a bestseller. According to reports, Emily received $4 million for her memoir, but most of that money was used to cover accumulated legal fees for her Italian lawyers. Emily was once a critic and journalist for the Seattle Herald-Web at that time, then was brought into the Seattle website and attended events for the Innocence Project and related organizations. On September 10, 2016, Netflix released a documentary simply titled Emily Johnson, which included interviews with Emily and other key figures in the case. The Netflix documentary told another side of Emily's story and included direct interviews with her nearly 10 years after the case. In a 2017 interview, Emily said she was dedicating herself to writing and advocating for wrongly accused individuals. In 2018, she began hosting the Scarlet Letter Report, a show exploring women's deep personal journeys of feeling publicly shamed. She was a prominent speaker at fundraising events, including for the Innocence Project. On January 24, 2019, the European Court of Human Rights ordered Italy to compensate Emily for violating her rights in the hours after her arrest in Perugia. Italy was ordered to pay Emily €18,400, about $20,000, for failing to provide her with a competent lawyer or interpreter when she was first detained. In June 2019, Emily returned to Italy as a keynote speaker at a criminal justice conference, where she was a panelist in a session titled Trial by Media. By this time, Emily and Marco had broken up, and Marco had married another woman and was living a peaceful life in Italy. On February 29, 2020, Emily married her longtime boyfriend, Christopher Robinson, in a Renaissance and Star Wars-themed wedding. They first met after Emily returned to Seattle, USA, in 2011, and they announced their engagement in 2019. In October 2020, Emily and Robinson launched a podcast called Labyrinths, where they discuss their relationship and facilitate compassionate interviews with philosophical musings and playful debates with fascinating people. They had released over 100 episodes as of June 2024. In an October 2021 interview with the New York Times, Emily announced the birth of their first child, a daughter named Eureka, born in August 2021. In September 2023, Emily gave birth to their second child, a son named Rory. On October 13, 2023, a court of review ordered a retrial of the case. In June 2024, an Italian appeals court annulled Emily Johnson's slander conviction for falsely accusing Patrick Thompson of killing Sarah Miller in 2007. Her legal story continued to unfold over many years, even though she had previously been acquitted of murder. What do you think about this case? Leave your comments below. Today's video ends here, and I'll see you in the next videos.